Welcome to this episode of our College Your Voices. I'm your guest host, Angelina Williams. Today, we will begin a series titled Colorful Conversations in Early Childhood Education. I am the Director of Early Childhood Education at Martin University and adjunct in ECE with Ivy Tech. Colorful Conversations in ECE was the brainchild of thoughts of strategies related to advocacy, policy, networking, and collaboration to enthuse more persons in the community to revisit the importance of the field of early childhood education. The early childhood field has seen a decline in interest over the last few years, is not evident in most pre-K through third grade classrooms, and is losing traction when compared to other fields and their projected earning potential. Today, I have the pleasure of sparking a colorful conversation with the new Early Childhood Education Department Chair for the Ivy Tech Community College Central Indiana location, Mrs. Rose Wilson.
Hi, Angelina, and I'm thrilled to be your first guest on Colorful Conversations. I do think we should let listeners know how we know one another, and will you give me the honors of telling that story?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Please, go ahead.
Great. Well, Angelina Williams is an alumni of the Early Childhood Education Program, first and foremost. I remember having you in my classes, and I remember that your experience and current position was family child care provider. So that was a unique position within, I think, all of our students in the classes, because not everyone is a family child care provider. Many people came from centers, so you were able to provide a unique perspective. And then when you graduated, I believe you spread your wings even farther and went forward and got a bachelor degree and a master degree. And then somehow you found your way back right here at Ivy Tech. And I believe that was in the role of dual credit instructor with one of our partnering high schools. So you did a little gig there. And while you were there, you said, hey, I could teach for you too, because I've always wanted to. And we welcomed you back with some open arms, that's for sure. And now I understand that you are working towards your PhD. So where are you with that journey?
I am with Walden University right now, and I am was a little afraid to do the PhD, so I'm working on my EDD, staying away from that dissertation and doing more of a thesis. So I am fresh in that journey, and I appreciate you mentioning that. I'm fresh in that journey, but my focus will be early childhood special education and education leadership.
That's wonderful. And, now because where you are, you and I, and our program at Ivy Tech, we are partners. So it just feels like full circle, and this is the way it should be.
Yes, ma'am. So listen, why don't you tell us a little bit about your educational journey and how that led you to your current position as the ECE program chair with Ivy Tech Community College?
Sure. I grew up in Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania, kind of Rust Belt area. And I went to school and received my bachelor degree and a master's degree in education with an emphasis in special education at California University of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, by the way, is notorious for having these college titles that kind of cross-reference states. So there's Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and then there's, I will say, formerly California University of Pennsylvania, because recently there were 3 schools colleges and universities that have merged into one because of lack of enrollment. So my college that I went to is merged with 2 other colleges, and it was originally a teacher's college. So I gravitated towards going there for that college. And after I finished my bachelor degree, I worked a couple stints with preschool and then went back to get my master degree and found myself working for First Steps of Indiana as a developmental therapist. So my job was to go into homes and evaluate children and work with children in their homes and work with their parents and their families. And I never dreamed I would be doing those things, working with families on an individual and such a intimate level. But I did, and I fell in love with it. And then a friend who was also in First Step said, I've been teaching for Ivy Tech as an adjunct. I think you should just contact the program chair. And so I did. And sure enough, I believe I landed with 3 classes. And that was the beginning for me, being an adjunct for several years. And then I think a full-time position became available in our program. And I took the plunge and I applied and gratefully accepted the offer. And then I had to leave my First Steps families, which was a transition in itself. So I'm so grateful for that experience in my life, that work experience, because it really helped me to understand children and understand families in a way that I'm not sure that perhaps in another profession that I could have done that. And then, as I've been teaching at Ivy Tech for at least 18 years, I have found my way into this position of being an associate professor. And then my colleague, Professor Diane Smith, said, I'm ready to take a break from being program chair. I'd like to go back to full-time faculty. Are you interested in applying? And I hesitated at first because most people say they don't want to be a program chair. That's an honest truth. And it's not just an Ivy Tech thing. This is across all sectors of academia. As a matter of fact, something that I recall a friend of ours who's in academia said, congratulations that you are the program chair, and also my condolences.
Okay.
And you know what? That kind of it broke my heart a little bit, because I'm not going to leave that and allow that to be a legacy. I'm here to change that perception of program chair. So
yes, ma'am.
That's where I am and where I've come from.
Yes, thank you for sharing. It's interesting to find out. You never know how many people that you come across are not actually home to the state that they're in. So it's interesting to hear that you're from Pennsylvania and that you started your journey as an adjunct. And that is amazing. And I'm more than sure you were able to use that First Steps knowledge in a lot of the classes that you taught, especially with you bringing up I remember being in your developmentally appropriate practice and cultural context class. And so that helped out there a lot. So why don't you share with us, what does a typical day as the ECE program chair look like? Now, before you answer that, I do know that from day to day, it can look different, just based off of what fires you may or may not have to put out. But just give us a pretty typical day.
Well, you kind of took the answer from me that says that every day is different. And it's true. Every day is different. However, I will say one thing that is consistent is that I have a lot of emails to answer. I would definitely say my email flow has increased since I've taken this position, which is all good and it's all fine. And I say every day is different just because everyone has different needs. And I like that, that actually keeps it fresh and keeps it going for me, is that since everyone's needs are kind of different, that I can find ways to make it kind of exciting and looking forward to coming into work. And, I will be honest that this was quite a transition for me.
Okay. And so that actually takes us into our next question. So how are you adjusting to your new role?
Initially, I was feeling kind of sad that I might not get to enjoy teaching so much, but I am. I'm getting to a place where I can. Wondering about, am I going to be doing the right things and good things for our community here in Indianapolis, and how that will reflect on Ivy Tech, those kinds of things. But I am learning so much about, I think, being in an administrative role and being in a leadership role. Right now, I have gravitated towards Brené Brown's books. The one I'm reading right now is Dare to Lead. So I'm liking that. For some reason, her writing speaks to me on a level that I can understand and relate to. So I'm hoping to take those, whatever I'm reading right now from her, and to implement those kinds of practices, if you will.
Well, I'll share with you, Ms. Rose, that I happen to be in a leadership class right now, and it's been helping out a lot with the role that I'm in. And that's through Michael Fullen. Yeah. He is amazing. And oh my goodness, it's just interesting. So thank you, because I did write that name down. And so thank you for sharing that. I will definitely check that out, and hopefully our listeners will as well. What do you find most rewarding about your position?
Well, now I am finding that I can have the best of both worlds right now for teaching classes and guiding and leading this early childhood education team. Now, granted, I am a team of two with me and Professor Smith, but I have to include our adjunct in there. So I include our adjunct faculty as a part of our team. And I really feel like the rewarding thing for this position is that our team, I believe, has a collective vision for the field of early childhood education. I think we want to see our students that we have in this program succeed, and we do meet them where they are. And we know the value of education and what that's going to do for our field. So those things just make me happy, if you will. Just
well, happy. And I will share that I appreciate having you in that position as program chair, because I happen to be one of those ECED adjuncts. And, you brought us in all together a few weeks ago, and we had a really great time just hearing the, new information about what's going on with Ivy Tech, what's going on in the early childhood field. And we were actually able to get a copy of The Coffee Bean, which for our listeners, that's another great book, just a little book to give you some inspiration. So thank you for that. We do appreciate your leadership. Now, if you don't mind sharing, what are some challenges that you feel comfortable sharing with us that you're experiencing?
When I think about any large institution or business, it's the bureaucratic stuff that is just frustrating. And I know this. I've lived this. I've been at this institution for many years, and I can accept it. I think that helps to keep me moving forward, knowing this in my conscious that these are things that come along with it. And it's okay. It's okay. I feel like I was hired because I can be creative. I can have a vision. And so I will want to, I guess, practice those things, if you will. So, it's nothing that is a challenge is okay by me.
Yes, ma'am. And they keep us on our feet, right?
Right. Yes.
Challenges. Yes. Okay. So now let's go into a utopic world, and let's take a magic wand. And if you had a magic wand, what would you change as it relates to current policy and legislation relevant to our field?
Oh, I love this question. And I am not a political person by any stretch of the imagination. But if I had a magic wand, I would wave it over Congress to pass and enact upon the current White House's plan called the American Families Plan. I'm not sure if our listeners are knowledgeable about this plan. Have you heard of the plan, Angelina?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Great. So, just for our listeners' sake, I want to just highlight some things that are important, that I find important. The plan is said to be a once-in-a-generation investment into our nation's future. I don't hear those things very often. All parts of that plan speak to me, from investing in education from infancy to college. There's direct support to children and families, extended tax cuts for families with children, and American workers. This plan emphasizes universal preschool for all 3 and 4-year-olds. And the plan is emphasizing universal preschool, free, accessible, and inclusive. The plan is also calling for childcare to be affordable, high quality, investing in the childcare workforce. So this means childcare employees who will be starting at a minimum wage of $15 should this plan be enacted. We have waited for an increase for a long time, and it's well overdue. Other things within this plan is embedding funding opportunities for childcare workers in trainings and things like that. So I don't know, it can't come at a better time, because I can't not say that COVID-19 has not impacted. We know that it's impacted our field. It's impacted education all across every level. It's exasperated, actually, what has been happening in our field of early childhood education. So at this time and place, we really need, I think, our representatives to step up and take kind of ownership of what's happening and help us. That's all I really can think of.
Yes, ma'am.
That would be my magic wand power.
Well, going along with that conversation, what policies and legislation that are currently in place do you appreciate?
I would say the most promising policy, if you will, if you want to call it policy, was put out by Indiana Teach Scholarship, which most of the students that we have at Ivy Tech use to pay for their schooling. They have all these increases for the Teach Scholarship of tuition and books, increased from 80% to 90% this fall. Recipient travel stipend increased from $50 to $85 per term. This fall, the release time reimbursement for sponsored programs increased from 60% of $10 per hour. And then starting, I think, back in August, the CDA training and associate degree recipients, their bonus increased it went from $200 to $400 upon successful completion of 9 credit hours per the annual contract. And then also people who are working towards a bachelor degree, their bonus increased from $300 to $500 upon their completion of those 9 credit hours per annual contract. You can't say those things are phenomenal in our field. That's a highlight for anyone that's on the Teach Scholarship. And if you're not on the Teach Scholarship and you're listening, reach out to me, because I will bridge you to whoever you need to at Indiana Teach.
Yes, ma'am. And to caveat off of that, they also offer a $3,000 stipend for when a student is doing their student teaching, if they're going for a licensure. So that $3,000 stipend, I mean, they weren't offering that before, and that helps to offset that cost of them not being able to work if they're not actually in the center that they're currently working in, if they're in the field. And so I think it's amazing.
Yes.
They've increased the amount of funds that they'll pay per credit hour as well, so that students that are looking to go to a private institution can and not have to worry about the wraparound costs. And so thank you for pointing out that the Teach Scholarship, and that is housed through the Indiana Association for the Education of Young Children, for our listeners, if you did not know that. And then again, reach out to Ms. Rose. She's put herself out there. Reach out to her and she will get you signed up with who you need to get you in contact so you can get signed up. How do you think we can increase the interest in our field?
I think just those of us that are in this field, in this profession, is tell your story. Tell your story. Tell your story how you started out at Ivy Tech. And this is where you've landed at Martin University as the director of early childhood education there. I tell my story. I tell my students sitting in the classroom, I can't be here forever. So please think about who's going to replace me. If you're sitting in the seat there, you might be able to replace me someday. Strive for those things. And again, I think just telling our stories, those of us that have been in this profession for quite some time, I think we can make an impact on a decision for someone who's not sure or they're thinking of getting out of it. Look, there are a lot of employees that are having high turnover rate in this field, and rightfully so. I think it's something that we need to look at is the wellness of the people that are taking care of the youngest children. What is the wellness factor? How do we address that? Those are important things. So I know that kind of went off of the original question, but really, I think just telling our stories and listening to one another, it goes a long way.
Yes, ma'am. I call that your why. That's what when I teach, I do something similar where, what is your why? Why did you join this field? What drove you? What was that one thing? Everyone has that one thing, right? Can you share any current partnerships and programs that benefit early childhood educators, administrators, children, and families that Ivy Tech may be?
Well, I mean, we have so many. I can't just pick one because our program partners with so many agencies and schools and that are, I feel, beneficial to across the board. So this is interesting. In the last, I think, 2 months, I would say probably every week I get an email from a center or preschool asking, can you please send your students our way because we need to employ them. We would love to host them as practicum students. And I think it's great. So that just keeps flooding. And I do wish that I had more students to send them and I share this information. And thankfully, I think just within Ivy Tech alone, we have our career coaching and employment center that our program has been working closely with for years, who's helps to guide students in a direction of where they may need to go professionally. So that's really helpful. We have just at Ivy Tech, I feel alone, we have a broad spectrum with Ivy Cares program. That's really helpful to students and families in need. So, again, working with four-year universities so that our students can have as many options as possible. That's kind of exciting as well. And
it is to include Martin University. Yay!
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. So lastly, what is the one thing you would like our audience to take away from this episode?
To always have hope. This question, I think, I like this question. And I always have hope, even in times of, when you don't feel like you can have any more hope, especially during this time. I feel sometimes I get overwhelmed. And the things I think that we can do to help one another is to be allies, reach out to your colleagues, reach out to your friends and say, hey, are you doing okay? Especially in this industry. Like I said, burnout happens really fast. So let's reach out to one another and just say, hey, how are you doing? And again, having hope. If I could have a theme song, India Ari's, she's a singer-songwriter, There's Hope. I love that song.
That is a beautiful song. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rose, for allowing me to have this colorful conversation with you. And for those out there, thank you for joining this episode of Our College, Your Voices. A special thanks again to Ms. Rose for being our first guest. and to our audience for taking the time out and being a part of today's colorful conversation. Hope you tune in next time. I'm your host, Angelina Williams. You can connect with me on Twitter at Angelina W. You can reach us by email at our college, yourvoices@ivtech.edu. And hey, don't forget, if you are an Ivy Tech faculty or staff member, you can join our Microsoft Teams listener community. Instructions on that come out every Thursday. Our website, where you'll find links to our show notes, is www.ivtech.edu/podcast. Production assistance for this and every episode is by Becky Campbell and the Ivy Tech Community Creative Services team. Podcast concept by Matthew Pittman. Theme music and post-production services provided by Jen Eads at the Brassy Broadcasting Company. We'll talk to you next time on Our College, Your Voices.